In the bustling town of Evergreen, there lived a man named Jake Miller. Jake was in his late 20s, working a mundane job at a local grocery store. He was known for his hard work and friendly demeanor, but deep down, he grappled with aspirations that seemed just out of reach. Despite his long hours, Jake would often find himself counting the coins in his pocket at the end of the day, feeling the weight of his financial struggles. His bank account barely covered his bills, and the thought of his unfulfilled dreams loomed over him like a dark cloud. Jake had always harbored a desire for a better life, a life where he didn't worry about money every single day. He imagined himself owning a cozy home with a small garden and possibly investing in a business of his own someday. However, with no formal education beyond high school and a lack of guidance, he felt aimless. He admired his neighbor, Miss Carter, a sharp businesswoman who always seemed to know her next move. Her approach to wealth and success fascinated him. To tackle his challenges, Jake decided that he needed to change his mindset. He often thought about money, viewing it as a source of anxiety and stress rather than a tool for building a future. He yearned to turn this mindset around, to see financial success as an attainable goal rather than a distant dream. Motivated by a burning desire for change, Jake started to read books on personal finance and watch online videos about successful entrepreneurs. However, he also knew that simply dreaming about a better future would not take him far. He would have to face several challenges along the way. Within the first weeks of his newfound determination, Jake spoke up at work, asking for hours on the weekends where he might earn a little extra. Although hesitant at first, his boss recognized Jake's dedication and allowed him to coordinate the inventory, granting him some additional hours. With this opportunity, Jake felt a surge of hope. But the road ahead was bound to be fraught with difficulties. He struggled with balancing additional hours with his limited free time, and the pull of comfort often tempted him to hit the snooze button rather than hit the books. He made little progress, often facing the inner critic that asked if he deserved a better life at all. Yet, fueled by a vision of what could be, Jake continued to push against the inertia of his past habits. He set a goal to save a certain amount each month, convincing himself that financial health was not just about what he earned, but also about what he chose to keep. Although small, each act of saving or learning ignited a spark of motivation within him, hinting that change was possible. He knew a clear plan and strategic thinking were essential, but as he delved deeper, each challenge turned into a stepping stone toward his aspirations. Little did he realize that this journey not only reshaped his finances but also rebuilt his identity as someone capable of making significant changes. As Jake began to take small steps toward bettering his financial life, he was filled with excitement but also uncertainty. He bought his first book on personal finance, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. Sitting on his couch with a cup of coffee, Jake flipped through the pages eagerly, his heart racing with hope. Yet, as he read, he felt a wave of doubt wash over him. The ideas seemed simple enough, but implementing them felt like trying to climb a mountain without training. He learned about budgeting, and how important it was to track every dollar. With a notebook and pen, he jotted down his income, his bills, and his expenses. But as the numbers crossed his mind, he became overwhelmed. There were so many categories to keep track of. Somehow, he felt unsure which expenses were necessary and which were luxuries. The task soon turned into a source of stress. Frustrated, he put down the notebook and stared at the wall. Was it too late for someone like him to change his financial fate? Doubt whispered in his ear, nudging him to give up. Despite these feelings, Jake picked himself up and sought guidance from social media. He began to follow financial experts like Rachel Cruz and George Kamel. Their videos were engaging and packed with useful tips, making finances seem achievable. Watching them gave Jake renewed energy. He took notes, scribbling advice on how to save and budget. Each tiny tip felt like a gem he could carry into his everyday life. But even with this newfound knowledge, Jake's self-discipline wavered. Busy days at work often pushed aside his plans to monitor his spending or stick to his budget. Jake also shared his goals with friends, hoping for support and encouragement. Instead, he received raised brows and skeptical questions. Some of his friends laughed, saying he was overthinking money. Their doubts echoed in his mind. Were they right? Was he wasting his time? Feeling discouraged, Jake felt like throwing in the towel. The road began to feel even steeper, and he questioned if he was strong enough to keep climbing. Determined not to succumb to these negatives, Jake pushed forward. He carved out time each Sunday to review his week. That meant putting aside distractions to really focus. With every budget review, Jake's confidence began to build bit by bit. Instead of feeling anxious about numbers, he started treating them like a puzzle, finding the best way to make all the pieces fit. He began to celebrate small victories, saving even just $5 here and there made him smile, and it reinforced the notion that change was possible. As time went on, Jake started to experiment with a simple tactic of spending less than he earned. He began looking for free activities in and around Evergreen, nature walks, local festivals, and book clubs at the library. Although at times he felt like he was missing out, the leap toward these new habits helped him form a budget. Even when moments of self-doubt crept back in, he pushed himself to track his expenses weekly, slowly noticing improvements. The path wasn't always clear, and sometimes it became discouraging. The initial burst of motivation sometimes flickered. As he faced moments of weakness, he reminded himself of Ms. Carter, the neighbor with a well-defined professional life. How did she do it all? It inspired him to keep learning, to remind himself of why he set out on this journey in the first place. Amid the frustrations, each struggle taught Jake a vital lesson about resilience and the strength needed for his financial journey. As Jake continued his journey toward financial stability, he began to encounter exciting new opportunities that tested his skills. After several weeks of budgeting and saving, he decided to take a leap of faith and pull together enough for a small emergency fund. The feeling of having some money saved was a small victory that filled him with confidence. With this newfound sense of security, Jake was ready to consider investing. He had never thought of himself as an investor, but he had recently learned that investing could help his money grow over time. One afternoon, while scrolling through his social media feed, he stumbled upon an advertisement for a local workshop on cryptocurrency. Jake had heard some buzz about digital currency from friends at work, and the idea struck a chord with him. The workshop promised to teach how to navigate this new financial world and understand its potential benefits. Sure, it involved some risks, but as he weighed the potential rewards, his heart raced with possibilities. This could be the chance he needed to put his financial knowledge to the test, yet, a nagging fear crept in: what if it was too risky? Was he ready to gamble with his saved money? Sitting down with his notebook, Jake started to weigh the pros and cons. On one side, attending the workshop meant expanding his knowledge, gaining insights into a new market, and tackling a new challenge. On the other side, he worried about losing the money he had worked so hard to save. What if he made a mistake and ended up in a worse situation than before? Suddenly, the fear of failure loomed large. With deep breaths, Jake reminded himself of how far he'd come. He had battled doubt and emerged stronger. Could he allow this fear to hold him back? He charted out a plan, thinking carefully about his options. If he invested only a small portion of his savings into what he could lose, he could attend the workshop without clearing out his emergency fund. In this way, even if things went wrong, he could still have enough to cover his basic needs. The scales began to tip as he visualized how this investment could turn into an advantage rather than a downfall. Whispering encouragement to himself, Jake signed up for the workshop. Walking into the venue on the day of the event, a local community center, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness swirl inside him. Could all this knowledge actually pay off? Throughout the workshop, Jake eagerly absorbed the information, from understanding blockchain technology to learning how to make informed investment choices. Every new idea bolstered his belief in his ability to navigate this complex world. He connected with others who shared the same interests. Their stories reassured him that investing was about learning and growing, not just about money. After returning home, Jake found himself reflecting on everything he had learned. He analyzed the information from the workshop carefully, remembering to take his time. Rather than jumping straight into investment, he decided to practice what he preached. He researched additional resources about different cryptocurrencies, their past performance, and expert advice online. The atmosphere of urgency faded away, and he felt empowered to take calculated steps. This wasn't just about diving into an opportunity, it was also about sharpening his decision-making skills. With knowledge fostering his development, Jake began to create a personal investment plan. He set clear goals and timetables for what he hoped to achieve in the next few months. Guided by his growing confidence, he was ready to take those important first steps. It wasn't about the fear of failing, it was about believing in the potential of each decision, no matter how small. Each insight he gained would not only apply to this unique situation but also become a catalyst for his overall growth in financial literacy. Understanding this mindset deeply prepared Jake, pulling him past the barrier of uncertainty and into a world filled with potential. Just as Jake was beginning to feel confident about his journey, life threw him a curveball. One rainy Thursday evening, he returned home from work and found a letter on his doorstep. It was from his landlord. As he opened it, his heart sank. The letter informed him that rent would be increasing significantly over the next month. The new amount was higher than anything he'd ever budgeted for. Panic surged within him. How could he handle this unexpected cost on top of the investments he was starting to navigate? Determined to stay logical, Jake sat down and assessed the situation. He pulled out his budgeting notebook, flipping through the recent entries that brought him this far. But now, as he faced this alarming news, the figures danced mockingly around in his mind. Old habits threatened to take hold again. The fear of financial instability swept over him, and anxiety filled every corner of his thoughts. Had he made foolish choices by deciding to invest in something as volatile as cryptocurrency? What if he was putting everything he had at risk? The familiar urge to throw in the towel crept in. Jake could already hear voices in his mind that echoed old doubts. They warned him that he would be no better than before, stuck in a cycle of financial uncertainty. Still, Jake pushed back against the internal chaos stirring inside him. He couldn't let fear dictate his decisions. He made a decision to act rather than react. Recognizing that his first response was crucial, Jake sat down and created a plan. He broke down the newly raised rent into smaller figures, analyzing how he could manage to afford it. He scrutinized the budget he had come to know so well, searching for opportunities to cut back, even temporarily. Maybe a few of his regular outings with friends could be put on hold. Perhaps he could cook more at home instead of eating out, allowing him to save every dollar possible, but it was difficult. Just a few days in, he felt the weight of uncertainty, pressing down relentlessly. As the days passed, the pressure mounted. Conversations with friends became awkward moments where he felt stressed about expenses. The tension made it easy to slip back into the comfort of self-doubt. Did anyone really believe in him? Even as he monitored his savings and spending, he still felt shaky. Could he truly handle the amount he had committed to investing, and now this added expense? One evening, in a moment of frustration, Jake nearly caved into temptation. A new cryptocurrency caught his eye, a trending coin that promised fast profits. A part of him whispered that this could be a solution to erase his problems quickly. But Jake paused. He didn't want to fall for a quick fix. This path felt eerily familiar, echoing the poor decisions of his past. He recalled his lessons on strategic thinking and disciplined investment. Taking a deep breath, he explicitly waited. Instead of rushing into a potentially risky proposition, he reminded himself of the importance of calculated thinking. In the days that followed, Jake struggled profoundly. The increase in rent dug deeply into his comfort zone, forcing him to confront his limits and redefine his relationship with money. With every time he reached for something fun or easy, he also felt the weight of the letter in his pocket. It pushed him to seek more clarity. He channeled his anxiety into focus. This could be a true test of everything he had learned. He began reaching out to support networks, friends, community classes, to clarify ways to accept the challenges head-on without letting fear dictate his strategy. The stakes had grown, and so had his resolve. He wasn't just fighting for financial literacy anymore, he was fighting for his new self. To overcome the storm brewing inside, and the storm brewing outside, there would be growth born from resilience. As the days moved forward, Jake found himself at a crossroads that felt monumental. After reviewing his tight budget yet again, he realized that he was just a week away from the new rent increase. His heart raced as he thought about the implications. With every passing day, tension crawled inside him. Was he really ready to invest in a world filled with uncertainty? He had saved diligently and attended workshops, but now it seemed like all his efforts were hanging by a thread. Jake's phone buzzed, distracting him from his heavy thoughts. It was an email about a company promoting an online investment course aimed at beginner investors like himself. The course was advertised as an opportunity to learn strategies and to gain insight into managing investments effectively. Jake considered it a sign, and excitement bubbled inside him. Perhaps this would be the knowledge he needed to navigate his uncertain landscape. However, the price of the course loomed over him. Could he afford it? As he weighed this decision, Jake felt a surge of fear about spending money he could ill afford. Part of him screamed to pull back, clinging tightly to every dollar in his small emergency fund. What if I fail again, he thought. Hours turned into restless nights where self-doubt whispered that he wasn't capable of handling the risk. The idea of spending more money to learn felt like a dangerous gamble on top of an already wobbly financial situation. Yet, another voice emerged, the one filled with determination and hope, reminding him how far he's come. Standing by the kitchen table, Jake took a moment to breathe. He thought about the countless times he had gotten lost in fear. Remembering the empowering moments from his workshop, the phrases repeated in his mind like a mantra, growth happens outside of your comfort zone. This was a test of not only his knowledge but also his willingness to embrace uncertainty. Was he willing to risk a small portion of his savings to gain knowledge that could potentially lead to future success? The scale began to settle. He crafted a list of potential benefits the course could provide. If he learned useful strategies, he might better handle his investments. Perhaps gaining insights from it would free him from the cycle of second-guessing himself when tough decisions came. To be stuck felt like roaring back into the past he fought so hard to leave. Could he risk going back to thinking poorly about money? Weighing these thoughts against his present circumstances sparked an internal flame. With the new rent looming, he realized that sticking solely to his budget was not enough. He needed actionable steps that would push him toward the life he envisioned. Failure at this moment would mean losing not only his savings but also the confidence he had carried since starting this journey. In a moment swirling with urgency and hope, Jake decided to go for it. With a deep breath, he signed up for the online course, knowing that he was investing in himself. His instinct told him this was the best decision. The cost felt like a manageable risk, certainly lighter than the pressure weighing on his mind each day. As he clicked confirm, he felt a flood of determination washing over him. Owning this moment filled yet another lesson in the art of not just surviving financial storms but letting them build character. This was Jake's moment to rise above the challenges that beckoned him to return to old habits. Embracing his fears opened new doors. It inspired him to view setbacks and investments less as burdens and more as parts of the growing process. Whether the decision would bring success or failure remained unknown, but trusting himself at this pivotal junction felt like a breakthrough in its own right. The next few weeks at work grew increasingly tense as Jake balanced his normal responsibilities with the new knowledge he was devoting himself to. After signing up for the investment course, his emotions fluctuated between excitement and anxiety. Jake set aside time each evening to immerse himself in the material, taking notes and learning the principles of investing and financial management. The essential lessons began to sink in, and he recognized the importance of research, patience, and a clear strategy. One principle resonated with him deeply: investing is not just about buying and selling, it's about understanding the long-term perspective. That reflection hit home, especially as he gazed at his tight budget following the rent increase. Rather than making impulsive decisions based on fear, he now viewed his financial situation through a lens of possibility. He could still take charge of his circumstances. Having gleaned essential knowledge from the course, Jake felt ready to re-enter the investment world with a sense of purpose. He set a clear investment strategy, starting small so he would not overextend himself. Bernie, the financial expert in his course, emphasized not to rush into investments without thorough due diligence. Jake embraced this advice wholeheartedly, resolving not to follow the crowd but to act wisely based on his understanding. Having reinforced his strategy, he made his first official investment, focusing on a stable company he had researched thoroughly. As he clicked the buy button, a wave of determination washed over him. This wasn't a gamble, this was a calculated step toward building the future he wanted. The immediate aftermath was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. Jake watched the stock fluctuate day by day. Some days he felt an exhilarating rush as he saw profits creeping in, bringing a smile to his face. Other days brought moments of panic when the numbers dipped. Yet through it all, he reminded himself of the teachings about patience and long-term thinking. He resisted any urge to panic sell when setbacks occurred. Instead, he focused on what he was learning about market trends and staying informed on news related to his investments. This methodical approach helped rejuvenate his confidence. Jake also revisited his budgeting plans, committing to saving an additional percentage each month to boost his investment potential. He no longer considered his money merely as a means to get by, he now understood it as a tool for growth and opportunity. As each small win stacked up, so did his confidence. He began making wise decisions not just about investments, but in other areas of his finances as well. The culmination of his decisions led to a memorable moment at a local cafe when a friend, who had previously expressed skepticism about his journey, asked Jake for advice. His friend was inspired by the recent changes Jake had made in his life, and it hit Jake hard how much his journey had affected him and those around him. Sharing what he'd learned transformed his perspective, it solidified his development. He realized that wealth isn't just about money, it's also about empowerment and helping others grow. As weeks turned into months, Jake's investment thrived, but more importantly, he learned to embrace setbacks as much as victories. Each experience provided valuable lessons that enriched his mindset. He approached life with curiosity, using past failures to build a resilient foundation for his future. This journey revealed to him that true success lies not in the numbers alone but in the transformation of mindset, discipline, and resilience in the face of challenges. By applying strategic thinking and embracing financial education, Jake found himself planted firmly on the path to sustainable wealth and personal growth, completely armed against the whispers of self-doubt that had once lingered in his mind. The journey had just begun, new horizons awaited him, fostering hope and excitement for the future he was now determined to create. As weeks turned into months, Jake found himself at a pivotal moment that offered solid lessons and a chance for reflection. The journey of investing had its ups and downs, but overall, he felt a sense of progress in his financial landscape. Each time he checked his portfolio, he saw evidence of his growth. He could hardly believe how quickly he had adapted to the changes. The tranquil feeling of accomplishment replaced the anxiety that once clouded his thoughts. Jake had experienced a few small bumps since making his first investment. At one point, his initial investment dipped sharply due to market fluctuations. Those moments had tested his patience and resolve, pulling him back into the familiar, anxious thoughts he fought against. In the past, he might have panicked, but, instead, he took a step back to evaluate the situation with logic. Remembering advice from the course, he acknowledged that market volatility was a part of investing. Keeping his long-term goals in mind proved invaluable. When the numbers were disappointing, he didn't give in to despair. Instead, he applied what he had learned about reviewing his investments regularly. This small habit of reflective thinking not only helped him adapt but deepened his understanding of how to respond appropriately. Adjusting his strategy to focus on solid companies with reliable growth potential gave him a clearer path to follow. Jake also noticed how these strategies governed other aspects of his life. He tackled his budgeting with similar approaches. Over time, he had streamlined his monthly expenses and identified unnecessary purchases, allowing him to save more without feeling deprived. Each dollar he saved now felt like a building block toward achieving his financial objectives. The consistent practice of what he dubbed thoughtful spending transformed his mindset. It wasn't just about saving money, it was about valuing the ongoing process that wealth creation required. At work, he carried his newfound confidence into discussions with colleagues. Instead of merely complaining about financial strains, both he and his coworkers began sharing insights about better spending habits and savings opportunities. Jake had transitioned from a passive participant in his life to an active learner and teacher. This shift changed his perception of success. It had less to do with earning more and more with being smarter with what he had. One crisp evening, while sitting on his porch and sipping a hot cup of tea, Jake found himself reflecting deeply on his journey. He sat quietly pondering how far he had come. This time last year, he was riddled with self-doubt and financial instability. Now, he held a clear vision for his future. Success had transformed in his mind from a target that seemed unreachable into a series of small, achievable objectives. He realized that each minor success built onto the next, stitching together a stronger discipline in handling money. Jake thought about the early days of budgeting and the fear that gripped him at every corner. He understood now that hard work was only part of the equation. The real magic lay in blending work ethic with smart financial planning. His perspective on wealth expanded, moving beyond just numbers and dollars. Wealth represented the freedom to explore aspirations, secure a future for himself, and share knowledge. That moment of reflection on the porch represented both gratitude and resolve. Gratitude for the lessons learned through both successes and setbacks, resolve to build upon this foundation. He wanted to continuously develop his skills and strategies. Letting go of his old mindset felt liberating, and his path ahead now sparkled with tremendous potential. The journey ahead inspired him, igniting a passion to embrace every moment as an opportunity for growth, learning, and developing his financial acumen even further. Jake found himself in a challenging but exciting position several months later. At work, his supervisor approached him with a new project that aimed to improve the financial strategy for the entire team. The company was facing tighter budgets and needed fresh ideas to streamline costs while boosting productivity. This was a significant chance for Jake to apply everything he had learned over the past year, and his heart raced with anticipation. As he sat in the meeting, surrounded by colleagues with expressions of concern, Jake remained calm. The atmosphere buzzed with uncertainty, many others worried about budget cuts and reduced hours. But Jake felt at ease, knowing this was his opportunity to help others. Instead of getting lost in the fear that clouded many minds, he stepped up to share his insights. Jake spoke with confidence, articulating his thoughts on prioritizing spending. He explained how he used strategic budgeting at home and how beneficial these principles could be in a professional setting. His colleagues listened intently as he outlined ways to eliminate unnecessary expenses and focus on what truly added value to their work. They appreciated Jake's practical advice, especially because he spoke from experience. Encouraged by the positive response, Jake proposed the idea of team collaboration to identify unnecessary expenses across departments. He suggested creating a simple format for everyone to log spending and come together each month to review it. The goal would be to surface insights about where they could create efficiencies and promote sustainable spending habits among themselves. Creating an atmosphere of teamwork excited everyone. With their newfound shared goal, colleagues rallied around Jake, uniting to tackle the challenge ahead. Over the next few weeks, the project unfolded smoothly. Jake felt invigorated as the team started implementing changes. They met regularly to review which expenses were worth keeping and which could be trimmed. Encouraging conversations about financial responsibility sprang up, showing how collective accountability grew among the team members. The initial concerns melted away gradually, replaced by a practical interest in healthy financial practices. Jake was amazed at how his approach evolved during this period. In the past, he would avoid challenges regarding money and fret about tasks that seemed overwhelming. Now, he framed challenges as opportunities, a mindset shift that profoundly transformed his perceptions of financial decision-making. His confidence soared as he realized that these discussions not only helped the company but also enriched his personal growth even more. Feeling accomplished, Jake decided to take another step beyond just managing the current situation. He wanted to mentor a budding employee who had shown interest in personal finance. He reached out to Anna, a recent intern who often expressed anxiety about figuring out her finances. They set a time to meet and began discussing budgeting basics, understanding debt, and even delving into investment concepts. Jake infused these sessions with the lessons he had learned. As he mentored Anna, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. Seeing her become enthusiastic as she absorbed the knowledge brought him immense joy. He recognized that passing on the endless learning he had embarked on was a significant part of building a community focused on financial literacy. Jake's belief that knowledge is powerful deepened profoundly, as he empowered others to take similar steps in their financial journeys. With renewed vigor, he embraced the world of financial planning, celebrating not just his growth but the widespread influence it was starting to have on others. The ongoing challenge of the company project had become a platform for transformation, one that spread knowledge, confidence, and collective progress throughout the team. As Jake looked around at his colleagues and Anna, he felt a sense of pride not only in what he had achieved but in how far he had journeyed, turning challenges into opportunities for growth and connection within the community. The lessons ingrained in him now shaped his future and the future of those around him. Months have passed since the initial project at work, and Jake stood in front of his colleagues, proudly presenting the financial improvements they had made as a team. From implementing new spending strategies to embracing a culture of accountability, the group not only survived budget cuts but had grown stronger because of them. There was a palpable energy in the room, one filled with excitement and hope, and Jake felt proud to be part of this transformation. The financial success the team achieved reflected Jake's journey toward maturity in decision-making and discipline. His hard work and strategic planning began to bear fruit beyond just work projects. Personally, he experienced significant growth as well. When he examined his finances, he found that he was living comfortably within his means and still allocating funds towards investments, proving his newfound understanding of wealth. His savings account had steadily expanded, giving him peace of mind about his future. Jake learned that financial independence was not just about accumulating wealth but also about feeling secure in making choices. Before this journey, he often worried about money or made decisions out of fear. Now, he approached all aspects of his finances, budgeting, saving, and investing, with calculated optimism. He viewed expenses as opportunities to learn and grow, rather than as burdens. When facing uncertainties, he had developed tools to analyze and respond rationally. One cold evening, Jake sat on the couch with a cup of tea, reviewing his financial goals. He assessed his progress and contemplated what true financial success meant to him. While he was not yet a millionaire, nor did he want to be defined by a number, he understood that his journey was everything he sought. Financial freedom lay in navigating life on his terms, having control over his choices, the ability to help others, and continuing to invest in self-growth. As he reflected, he thought of Anna, the intern he had mentored. Seeing the progress she made in understanding personal finance filled him with pride. Teaching her had reinforced what he learned on his journey, the importance of sharing knowledge. Wealth grows not solely from one's finances but also from the connections and support that develop along the way. Each moment spent helping others follow their paths to success made Jake's journey feel even richer. With regard to investments, stability became a goal he was working toward, enabling opportunities to emerge organically. He actively sought products that aligned with his ethical values while aiming for growth. Rather than focusing solely on quick gains, he trained himself to consider long-term perspectives. This shift in mindset had evolved into a coherent philosophy, guiding both his professional and personal life. Jake's recent promotion further solidified this transformation. His innovative ideas and proactive mindset were recognized, highlighting how much he had grown. He knew his hard work led him here, but the support of his peers made this achievement possible. Through collaboration, they had created a culture of empowerment and responsibility, showcasing the essence of teamwork. As Jake drifted into thought, he realized that success is indeed a journey, with twists, turns, setbacks, and triumphs. He understood that others could achieve financial success by embracing this mindset. Building knowledge, sharing it, and cultivating healthy financial habits were keys to real prosperity. True wealth meant balancing a life filled with experiences, learning, and self-improvement, rather than simply chasing monetary goals. With renewed motivation, Jake set intentions to further his own financial education and help others realize their ambitions. He began organizing workshops at his workplace, inviting employees to learn together and share insights. Feeling empowered, he was excited to spread the idea that financial success could be within anyone's reach, encouraging others to become active participants in their financial journeys. The path ahead looked bright as he embraced both the challenges and triumphs that lay before him, solidifying that success is not merely an endpoint, but an ongoing adventure leading to a fulfilling life.